The Philippines is a stunning country, and I'm making this video so I can tell you about 10 things that I wish I knew before I traveled the Philippines, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes that I did. Counting down, number 10 is cash. Cash is what most vendors use around the Philippines, so it's your best bet to have some with you. You can get cash from ATMs nearby, and one other tip would be to get the smallest denomination of note that is available, so like 100 peso if possible. If you do only get 1,000 peso notes, it can be really hard to get change. At number 9, I have Google reviews. Google reviews have actually been a lifesaver for us, regardless of what you're doing. So if you're trying to book an experience, an accommodation, or whatever, the site that they are on, for example, booking.com, you can't always trust the rating. So if you want ratings that you can trust, go and look at the Google review. And I would say specifically to look at the lowest ratings and also the most recent ratings. That's your best bet at understanding what that experience or facility is actually like in real life. If you're enjoying these videos, please remember to subscribe so I can keep making these videos. And number 8, I say avoid cities unless you have something that you actually specifically want to go and see. I think they're not worth it. They're quite hot, very busy, and the traffic's usually pretty bad. We did spend a bit of time in Cebu and Manila, and we ended up just spending most of our time in malls anyway, so avoid them. Number 7 are the friendly Filipinos. So before we went, I was a little bit nervous about how careful I need to be with my belongings and how friendly the people might be, but by the end of it, I knew that most people were super friendly, and it was really easy to make friends because most Filipinos speak really good English. And number 6, we have accommodation. I suggest doing your research using Google reviews to make sure that you get a good spot that you can stay. We actually had a really bad experience because we didn't know what we were booking when we used booking.com. We chose a spot that we thought was great. It was in the middle of town, right by the beach, but it ended up being very busy and very loud at night till like 2 a.m. because that's where all the bars were, and we didn't realize until we got there. Google reviews made a lot of sense because it was exactly what other people had struggled with there as well. And number 5 are travel options. There's quite a few to run through, so I'll go through them quickly. The first one are jeepneys. We actually didn't use these very much. They're like minibuses that go to various different locations, but you do have to know what you're doing. What we did end up using a lot were tuk-tuks and taxis. They're quite easy to use. You just wave them down, and usually we negotiated a price before getting on our way. Or the other way to do it is using the Grab app, which was available in pretty much all the big cities and works very similar to Uber, so quite easy to use. We also used flights, so you can choose between Philippine Airlines or Cebu Pacific. These can be booked through the respective airline websites. Some pros is that you can save a bit of travel time, but you do have to get to the airport quite early, like 3 hours early, so you have to factor that into your day. And lastly, we used ferries. We ended up using one called the Ocean Jet, which was very quiet and comfortable, and we did upgrade to the business option, which was only slightly more expensive, so it was worth it. The other drawback with ferries is that it can take more time to get to your destination. And number 4 is helmet diving. This was one of my favorite activities that we did in the whole time that we're in the Philippines. So we did this in Boracay, and what it is there's a helmet, like a glass helmet that you put on your head, and you go down to the seafloor and a diver's there to guide you down, and you can just look at the reef, look at the fish. It's actually really easy. I'm not super confident in the water, so I was a little bit worried, but it was so easy. There were kids doing it. Anyone can do it, so I highly recommend that you give it a go. The best way to book yourself in for helmet diving would be either through your hotel or hostel, but you can also just use a guide, or you can go to the counter on the beach and book yourself in that way as well. Number 3 is island hopping. We did this in Siargao and Boracay, and it was so cool. You can do this usually as a private tour or a group tour. We did both, but I would recommend the group tour. It's a bit cheaper. There's not much point to getting a private tour. What it involves is you get on a boat and you go to a few different islands where there's different things. Like the first island was just sand and there was good snorkeling around, lots of fish to look at. In the second and third islands there was food and drink. We had lunch at one of the islands and they all had really good snorkeling. And it's just so nice to sit down, relax, have a drink. You can book island hopping tours in the same way that you book helmet diving tours. And number 2 are the best places. Where are those places I would definitely go back to? Number 1 is Boracay. It was just such a stunning spot. The beaches were beautiful and clean. The water was crystal clear. The only thing I would do differently next time is to go away from the busy touristy areas and get accommodation slightly further out where there's still lots of choice. There's also lots of activities like the helmet diving, the island hopping and land tours as well if you want to. And number 2 is Surigao, where there's lots of surfing to do and also island hopping and snorkeling. I really enjoyed it. That was another spot that I'll also definitely go back to. And lastly, and number 1 is the itinerary. We spent 2 weeks in the Philippines and I've got listed on the screen all of the places that we went to. What I would do differently is spend even less time in the city, so less time in Cebu, and also possibly skip Bohol because it's quite similar to the other islands. So I would spend more time in Boracay and more time in Surigao if I was to do the trip again. Lastly, thank you guys so much for watching my videos. If you like that content, please remember to like and subscribe, and there'll be more content coming out very soon.